The New York Rangers are definitely going to have a massive decision to make with their current top prospect, Gabe Perreault, as he has looked pretty good so far throughout this preseason. And I think obviously there's definitely a lot of questions right now on kind of what the plan is going to be for the New York Rangers, especially kind of forward lines, as there are just so many players battling for a select few spots. And a lot of those guys that are in the mix for some of these spots are on the younger side of things, like a Gabe Perreault, that are prospects. And, it's not just Gabe Perreault, it's also guys like Brennan Othmann, Brett Berard, Noah Laba, and with all that competition, there really is only a few spots that are actually going to be available because, of course, in the forward side of things, you have the locks pretty much being Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Vincent Trocheck, Alexi Lafreniere, Will Cooley, JT Miller, that's 6 guys right there. And then you add on a guy like Sam Carrick, who I think is a pretty much lock to be that fourth line center, of course. And then after that, you've got guys like Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe, who very well might end up being the fourth line wingers. And maybe they don't. Maybe they do decide to go with someone like a Johnny Brodzinski or a Taylor Radish, or maybe for whatever reason, Mike Sullivan wants to see a guy like Brett Berard or Brennan Othmann on the fourth line. Not that I want to see that, but it's possible. So, there is a few spots available, but assuming they do go with guys like Edstrom and Rempe on that fourth line as the wingers, that basically kind of only leaves that third line open for spots that are actually available with, quite a few guys still in the mix. Because, like I said, you've got those prospects in Noah Laba, Brett Berard, Gabe Perreault, and Brennan Othmann, all fighting for spots right now, absolutely. But then you add on the veterans who are also, of course, in the mix as well. Guys like Taylor Radish, Connor Sheary. Obviously, he's a guy on a PTO, but he's, of course, someone who has been coached by Mike Sullivan in the past, so he very well might end up wanting to go with his kind of guy who he's familiar with, who's a veteran player who's, had a lot of success, of course, with him and the Penguins. So maybe he wants to go with someone he's more familiar with. And then also 2 other guys there that are going to be in the mix, Johnny Brodzinski and Juuso Parssinen. So if we are to assume that the fourth line is going to be Edstrom and Rempe and then Carrick down the middle, which I assume absolutely 100% we're going to see Carrick as that fourth line center. The wing spots are still up in the air. But basically the point being, if that's going to be your fourth line, Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe, you only have 3 spots available for 4 top prospects, being Laba, Brett Berard, Othmann, and Perreault. And then you've got another 4 players fighting for the exact same spots as those 4 prospects. And these guys are NHL experienced in, Connor Sheary's on a PTO like I talked about. Then they've got Juuso Parssinen, Johnny Brodzinski, and Taylor Radish. So there really is a lot of competition for a select few spots, which at the end of the day, I do think is good. I mean, having these prospects having to battle against guys who have, quite a few games played at the NHL level, I think is a good thing. But with having all that competition, there definitely is a chance where we don't see any of those 4 prospects at the NHL level to begin this upcoming season. Now, I wouldn't say that's likely. I do feel like we're still probably going to get one of the 4 at least. Probably not Laba. I do feel like they're going to go with a more kind of experienced centerman, but I do think there is definitely a possibility where we still do see one of the 4 at the NHL level. And if they continue to really impress and we do see a couple of them at the NHL level for opening night, I'd be happy with that. But as of right now, I just do have a feeling we're going to see Mike Sullivan go with a bit more of a veteran crew. And as of right now, I would say there are 7 players locked into the opening night lineup on the forward side of things for the Rangers, and that would be as the fourth line center, Sam Carrick. Unless injuries happen, of course, I think he'll be the fourth line center for sure. Then you've got just the other kind of 6 forwards. That doesn't mean they're guaranteed to be in the top 6, but these players are locked in for the opening night lineup, in my opinion. And of course, that is Alexi Lafreniere, Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck, JT Miller, Will Cooley, and Mika Zibanejad. Those are the 7 forwards that I do think are pretty much 100% locks unless injuries do happen. So then that theoretically means there is 1 center spot available for the third line, and then you've got 4 wing spots available, with 2 of them being in the fourth line, and then you've got 1 kind of third line spot for sure. Maybe we do see, one of Zibanejad or Cooley possibly in that kind of third line role potentially, but I do think, of course, the main point is there are 5 forward spots available right now, 4 wing spots, and 1 center spot available for all 10 of those forwards that are competing right now. And obviously, there's a lot of competition. You've got, like I said, the 4 prospects there: Laba, Berard, Othmann, and Perreault. Then you've got the kind of 3 young forwards who I don't really consider prospects, but, are still quite young. And those are guys like Juuso Parssinen, Adam Edstrom, and Matt Rempe. And then you've got the kind of veteran players like a Connor Sheary, Taylor Radish, and Johnny Brodzinski. So there are 10 guys fighting for 5 forward spots available. There's lots of competition. And, right now it really is a question on kind of, does Mike Sullivan want to go with a bit of a younger crew or an older crew? And like I said, my guess is, as of right now, it is definitely on the older side of things, unfortunately, which, may be good, may be bad. We'll have to wait and see, of course. But I do think it very well is possible that we do see all 4 of those prospects I talked about be in the AHL to begin the season. And that isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. Now, I wouldn't mind, of course, seeing, at least one of those guys, get a real chance there in the top 9. But I do understand that if they are going to get sent down to the AHL, then, of course, they'd be more than likely getting a much bigger role where they could be getting, guaranteed top 6 minutes at even strength, of course. Then you're pretty much guaranteed to get some potential top line kind of power play minutes. And then also, 3 of the 4 of them, except for Gabe Perreault, would probably be getting some penalty killing time as well. So there are some pros and cons to both sides of things there, obviously having them in the AHL or the NHL, but I do think for their development, especially a guy like Gabe Perreault, if he's not going to get top 6 minutes, I do feel like, personally, I would much rather see him in the AHL where he'd be guaranteed top line minutes at even strength. He'd also, of course, be on the top power play unit where he could potentially be that kind of, main focal point there, kind of running the power play. And then also, he's just going to be able to have so much opportunities to just really kind of try out things. He is someone who, if you watch him so far in the preseason, he loves to make these crazy kind of saucer passes through like 3 or 4 bodies in front of the net, across the other kind of circle in the offensive zone. So I do think giving him a shot in the AHL just to really kind of try so many things at the pro level, to see what works, see what doesn't, really kind of try and hone his skill set there and just kind of continue to develop there, because he is also a guy who's undersized compared to the average NHLer. Like, he's not the biggest player, he's not the heaviest guy, he's not the strongest guy. So getting a few more games in the AHL and then maybe getting called up a month or 2 into the season when he's got 10 or 12 games played there, maybe he's got 15, 16 points, over a point per game possibly. If he's doing that, then absolutely call him up there if he is doing a really good job down there. So I do think it makes sense on both sides to have him in the N or the A. But at the end of the day, personally, I do think if he's not going to be in the top 6, putting him in the AHL is probably what's best for his development long term. But obviously, at the end of the day, it is up to Mike Sullivan and the rest of the coaching staff. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post a video about the New York Rangers every single day. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video and, on, like I said, those 10 players that are fighting for those kind of realistically only 5 spots available. It's going to be real tough, I'm sure, for Mike Sullivan to make those decisions, but at the end of the day, I think he's a pretty good coach, so I have faith in him making the right decision there to hopefully put this team in the right spot to get back into the playoffs. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.